All right, guys, looks like we're good to go. So again, for anybody who is watching this recording, what we're going to be talking about today is security tokens. And really, so we've been talking about this for about a year now, and I want to show you guys kind of what I've been doing. Like I just mentioned, I've been spending like the past 90 days basically just entrenched with this stuff and reading and reading and reading and reading and testing and playing around and contacting people and having conversations and, really just trying to figure out and grasp this space, which is brand spanking new. I would say it's really less than a year old. And we're definitely in the super early infancy stages of security tokens. And so I'm going to show you guys what I've been doing. I'm also, there's going to be some companies that you guys might know about or have been working with that I haven't heard about or explored yet. And so what I want to do is kind of, after I go through what I have prepared for you guys, I want to open a dialogue and hear from you guys if there's anything that you've seen that's exciting or anything that, just that I didn't bring up or didn't cover, because there's so much. I mean, it's crazy the amount of notes and the amount of companies that are popping up like every day. So I'm going to do my best to cover as much as I can in the shortest period of time as I can, which is going to be a lot. And then again, if you guys have questions or, any blind spots that I might have or any companies that I haven't mentioned that you think are really cool, let me know and we'll have some time for that too. So yeah, we're definitely going to record this and have it on the members area. So with that said, actually what I want to start by doing is, of last year, I did a YouTube video where I kind of talked about the basics of security tokens. So I want to take just like 2 minutes and run through some of the basics for anybody that's kind of new to security tokens, or if you just want a refresher. That way you guys have some context of what I'm actually going to be talking about whenever we start doing a deep dive on some of these companies. Cool. To kind of start, if we look at kind of the evolution of cryptocurrencies or crypto assets, right? Because cryptocurrency is like a subset of crypto assets, and blockchain and crypto and all these definitions have really evolved ever since I've been in the space. And so the first phase was kind of what I call the rise of Bitcoin, right? Where really like 2012, 2013 is when really there was like significant trading volume started to come in. Before that, for the guys and ladies that were quote unquote lucky enough to be in before like 2013, it was still just a very niche thing. There weren't really exchanges. It was just a bunch of geeks and cypherpunks that were trying to figure this out. And that's what I call the rise of Bitcoin. And that led us up to the last accumulation period, which was like 2015. And then like 2016 and 17 is where we saw the ICO boom, right? And we call these utility tokens, or like Rocky calls them fun tokens, right? And there were a lot of scams. There was a lot of hype, a lot of BS. And, it got out of hand. And it was unsustainable, as we've seen. Like if you pull up the total crypto market cap chart, excluding Bitcoin, you can see altcoins are down over 90%. So the third phase, which we're in now, is security tokens, or the tokenization of securities. And what is a security? It's basically a legal contract, if you will, that can represent ownership in a company or just a bunch of different assets. And that's really, I would say the first year that we started to get momentum on this was last year, right? And so the biggest difference here is really just regulation. So like, the SEC chairman, I think last year or 2017 said like, look, guys, most ICOs are securities and we need to regulate them, end of story. And basically they're just saying like, if you think you're going to raise money and put up a website and a white paper and create a shit coin and steal a bunch of money from people, we're going to come after you. And I actually, look, there's this philosophical debate in crypto about like, what is the government's role? I do think that government has a place in crypto to stop bad actors. I just, and we've seen what happens when it's unregulated and when people can do whatever they want. It just brings out the scummiest of the scammers, right? And just really, really bad actors. And so I kind of like the direction that this is headed, where, granted, I don't agree with all the regulations, especially the accredited investor thing. But I do think that it's much more sustainable if the crypto community doesn't try to fight government, and together they work together to figure out, like, okay, how do we make this sustainable and get real assets on the blockchain and, whatever. So again, I know we have a range of people that have different beliefs about government's role, and I don't really want to get into a political debate about that. I just want to say that my opinion is that, like, I'm really bullish on the future of security tokens, and I think that the development and the progress that we're seeing right now is a really big positive, and I'm really excited, which is why I've dedicated so much of my day, like hours and hours and hours, like most of my day is going into this right now. So with that said, what are security tokens? They're crypto assets that are just legally classified as security, right? There isn't like some special protocol that makes them security tokens. And you can have different types of assets, right? You can have currencies, equity in companies or debt. They can be like rewards points, like, travel or credit card rewards points, right? Like different weird things like that, or fractional ownership in stuff like IP, intellectual property, real estate, artwork, right? Just a bunch of really interesting assets. And some of the benefits are like, by having a security token that's vetted, it eliminates a lot of the scams, right? And you can actually get equity in a company, not just some fun token that may or may not, really reflect anything, right? The benefits of security tokens for entrepreneurs, for anybody who's launching an STO, is it's gonna be, and it's starting to be, easier, faster, and cheaper to raise capital. You get access to a larger investor base. You can have more creative ways to grow your community and your customers. And the automated regulation piece of that is going to save a lot of time for founders. You guys would be amazed at how much time CEOs that I know that have even just raised like seed rounds or A rounds, how much of their time goes into like the regulatory stuff and managing cap tables and stuff like that. It's just a very inefficient use of founders' time. So the whole automated regulatory piece of this is very interesting. So some of the downsides that we see right now is there is a restricted investor base, right? The whole accredited investor thing, which we'll talk about at some length, and I'll show you ways to get around that, or the regulation that's in place right now that allows non-accredited investors to invest, and some of the pros and cons there. Another downside is lockup periods, right? Where you could have, there's really two significant periods. There's 90 days and 12 months, and there's events that trigger based on those time periods. And then the cost of compliance, right? Here being in like the super early infancy stage of this, it's still expensive. It's inefficient. It's much, much slower than I know you guys and I probably want it to be, but that's, the real world. It just takes time to build this stuff. So some of the players, what is this space consisting of? Well, you have like primary issuance companies, right? Like companies that actually create and launch the tokens. Then you have secondary markets, aka exchanges like T0, where you can actually go and take these tokens and trade them back and forth. And then you have the protocols that these are built on, right? Like some of the earliest ones are ERC20 tokens, right? You also have companies that are not just issuing and creating the tokens, but actually offering the assets, right? Like you have VC firms, you have real estate holding companies, you have startups, you have advisors, legal, marketing, all that stuff, right? So that's kind of the basics of what security tokens are. Before we dive into like the individual companies and what I've been doing, I just want to ask, does that make sense? Are you guys all clear on that? Do you understand kind of the basics of what security tokens are and why they're here and where we are just in the broader sense of the crypto evolution? Any questions before we move on? Cool. Okay, so let's take a look then at kind of the current ecosystem. Like what are the different areas of this? Who are the players? What's going on? All right. So, and I'll show you where I've really been focusing my time is kind of here in the middle. So you have, broker dealers, you have compliance companies, you have legal issuance, right? Like the company's actually creating and launching tokens. You have trading, right? Exchanges, you have custody, right? Like multi-sig wallets, stuff like that. So my main focus has kind of been over the past few months here in the issuance and trading, right? This is really what's most interesting and relevant to what we do as investors and traders and entrepreneurs. So I'll just kind of run through some of the ones that I've been looking at and working with and doing due diligence on. And if you guys have any questions, just feel free to throw them into chat there. So the first one that I'll talk about is T0. Oh, and by the way, just quick disclaimer, guys, like I don't have any relationship with any of these companies. And I haven't been paid to like talk about any of these companies or anything like that. So like this is all just really my unbiased, objective opinion about all this stuff. So T0 is really like the first exchange that I've gotten on and started trading with. And I'll just pull up a couple of articles because I've been frustrated and excited about this at the same time. But basically what happened, to give you guys a little bit of context of, the last year, or not even a full year yet, but basically T0 did an ICO. They raised, I believe, $134 million, and they went to work building a trading exchange. And right now they're using like this just really oversimplified platform where all you can really do is buy and sell the T0 tokens, right? So their goal is to create a really robust exchange, kind of just like the NASDAQ or I guess Coinbase, right? Where they can list different security tokens. And what has happened, so when they raised their money, they sold the tokens, which the ticker is TZROP. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to drop all of these articles and links in the new security token channel that I created. So let me just do this. I'll do the ecosystem for anybody who wants to look at that. And then a couple of these articles. So what happened though is T0 raised that 130 something million at $10 a token. And what happened is when they launched the token on their, it's funny because their platform currently is called Dinosaur, which is really, it's like a dinosaur. It's like so old and ugly and just, it's really nothing. And I believe I signed an NDA. Like a lot of these exchanges and issuance platforms, they make you sign NDAs that you're not going to like share the details of specific investments and stuff. So I can't log in, but I took a screenshot of just like an hour ago, the latest market activity. This is like the current bid ask daily high low. So you can see as of an hour ago, it only traded like 3,000 shares worth. So the volume is super, super low, but you can see like, again, and I know, BTC Kyle's in here, some of you guys, may have bought these tokens at $10. And the challenge, and I think the reason why these prices fell by 70 or 80% is because they were limited. Whenever they raised that 130 million bucks, they were limited to accredited investors, right? So what that does is it severely limits the amount of people that can invest. But the people that are interested, I would say over 90% of them probably bought the ICO. They were like, well, we just want to get in. We don't want to miss the boat, right? But the problem, and here's where things kind of suffer in the short term, is when they listed this, it's not like they had a private ICO and then they list on Binance and Coinbase and Polo and Bittrex and all this stuff where they get access to a ton of liquidity and a ton of traders from all around the world. They were limited to only investors that were A, accredited, and B, took the time to jump through all the hoops to get approved on the T0 platform, which was a pain in the ass. It took me over a month. And the thing is I'm sure they have like a really small team right now. And when they launched initially, there was a flood of KYC and accredited investor verification documents, which is a pain to begin with. So what that did, though, is it restricted their potential buyers on the secondary market probably down to 1% of what it could have been if it was a regular token that just got listed everywhere. Right. So when that happens, when you have a whole lot of people that bought at 10 and there's maybe 1% compared to 99% seller to buyer. So you have 99 people looking to sell to one person. That just creates a sell-off, right? You just don't have enough buying support there. And I think that's why prices are down. And that's why I'm interested in buying here. And I've started to accumulate but very, very slowly and not a big position at all. I mean, there's really, and I put this in a trade alert, I think a few days ago, where I said there's really two things that I'm looking for. I want to see T0, list more tokens, right? And actually get an idea of what their revenue is going to look like. And then number two, also see what their next evolution of the trading platform is and make sure they can actually get something that looks pretty solid. Yeah, and Kyle, by the way, what you're typing, and for anybody else who wants people to see what they're typing, if the 2 says all panelists, then I'm the only one that can see that. If you put all panelists and attendees, then everybody can see that. So here to answer your question, what prevented them listing elsewhere? It's because they're security tokens and they're trying to basically promote their own security token exchange. Janvidi, I'm going to just say Jan, in August, everyone can buy T0. So here's the next link I want to share, which Kyle just showed me this. I think, this just came out today, and I'll post this in Discord as well. What happened is they did an interview with Trading Technologies, which does data feed for futures and stuff. I've traded through their feeds in the past, but basically there was a few key things that I saw in here. One was they're looking to launch the next evolution of their exchange in the third quarter, I think. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so they're looking to, there we go. Do you know when the exchange will launch? We have a draft. We're talking to the SEC about it. We're tentatively targeting as early as Q3, but it could be longer than that. So I'm not in any rush, but you can see the article that came out last week or a few days ago. And I kind of agree with this. I had this thought, which was once the T0 tokens open up to non-accredited people, which it will in August, I think that's going to give a boost to the tokens. So you guys can read this. I won't bore you and read this whole article in the class, but the gist of it is Patrick was admitting that volume is super low right now, less than $250,000 in trading volume a day. And basically later this year, they're looking to launch their true exchange and open up to non-accredited investors, which will open up the buyer pool. And then the third piece of information that's really big, which I think is supposed to happen tomorrow is there was a Hong Kong investment firm called GSR Capital that they were planning on investing up to 400 million bucks in Overstock anti-zero. I don't know how they were going to do that, if that was going to be the tokens or the OSTK stock. But basically, in December, they asked for an extension and they moved the deadline to tomorrow. So we'll see. I mean, I'm just thinking, okay, well, what happens if there's a news piece tomorrow that says, okay, GSR is coming out, they're going to invest 400 million bucks. I would expect that to give a pop to the Overstock's actually publicly traded stock and possibly the T0 tokens as well. So that'll be interesting to see. Or if not, if they come out and they're like, you know what, we're pulling out, or if it's going to be significantly less, or if something happens with, some kind of black swan event with their Overstock's retail business, that could have a big play. So I'm not going to buy like a bunch of tokens or Overstock's stock ahead of this deadline. I'm going to wait to see what happens with that, because if it comes out and it's some kind of bearish news, then there might be a panic sell opportunity to maybe dip by that. And with no price chart of the T0 tokens, I can't really tell, where support is and all that. I mean, if you look at the only other, I got to log back into this. The only other exchange that I've actually seen a price chart on for security tokens is Open Finance, but they're not accepting U.S. customers at this time for some reason, which is confusing to me, because if you read this line right here, Open Finance is a U.S. regulated trading platform. We just don't like U.S. customers. So I don't know what's going on with that. Oh, John, okay. Can blockchain tech speed up the process of accredited investor verification? In other words, can you be verified investor so you don't have to go through the arduous KYC process every time you invest? Bevatime, that is the perfect question. And I wish the answer to that was yes. As of right now, it's just a pain in the ass. Like the amount of back and forth that I've gone through just doing this KYC is and the accredited verification, like my CPA is so mad at me, because like every other day I'm like, hey man, I need a letter that says what you said yesterday, but with slightly different verbiage, and like it's just very strange. So whoever solves that problem is going to make a lot of money. And I know Civic and several other companies are working on stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be some kind of better KYC, and like we've seen, like with the recent hack of the KYC information, who was it? Binance, Polo, and Bittrex, I think, were the ones that had the KYC information hacked. Like that alone is a massive problem. Just having all these IDs and passports and socials floating out there, like it needs to be way better. But that's where the opportunity is. Anytime I'm really frustrated at a market, it usually means we're really early, which is fine. I mean, I kind of feel like and like John said, I feel like we're getting into this with you like it's 2013 all over again. Yeah, I feel that way too. And a lot of the frustrations that we had back in 2013, 14, 15, 16, right? Like the highs and lows that we had through those years, that inefficiency in a lot of cases is where you can make a lot of money, because it's hard, because it takes work, because it's inefficient, because it's a pain where your average tourist isn't going to put in the work until everybody at the water cooler at work is doing it, right? And by that point, it's too late because it's a bubble. So so basically right now I'm looking at the current infrastructure and I'm placing small bets. And my hypothesis or my prediction is that there is a company or several companies right now that in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years is going to be a multi-billion-dollar valuation, and I want in on that. I don't know who it's going to be. I'm making some guesses, and I can tell kind of the landscape of how things are developing right now. But like, my goal is to invest early in some of these companies that are going to have a massive payoff in the near future. Or, hey, it might even be 5 or 10 years. I don't care. It only takes a couple of good investments in your career on the venture side, which is really what this is, guys. I mean, this is venture investing. This is early stage startup investing. It's tokenized, and there's all this like sexy lingo around blockchain, but at its core, it's startup investing, which means it's super risky. Most companies are going to fail, but the ones that come out, if you manage your portfolio right and you understand position sizing, you can do really, really well. So that's what I'm excited about. And, that's also what I really love about bear markets, right? Like, when prices are depressed and you have everybody that's running for the exit, that's where I start to get really interested in things for several reasons, right? A, we know like inherently buy low, sell high. But when it comes to bear markets, that's obviously the best place for accumulation mode. But that's when a lot of the tourists and the get-rich-quick people are gone, and there's less noise around the shit that doesn't matter, which means there's more time and more room for real development and progress, right? Just like 2015, like Rocky talks about this all the time in the market updates, where the fundamentals in 2015 were so bullish. And we were doing live webinars like every week. And I was on a speaking tour and wrote the book in 2015 saying like, guys, look at all this awesome development that's happening when the media and the public is all depressed and sad. It's like, no, you're missing it. Like, this is the time to be excited. I feel that way again now. Like now, like I'm just over the past like 60 days, I'm looking at what's happening and I'm like, man, this is huge. Like there's real stuff happening right now. Now, how does that relate to Bitcoin's price or any one like current crypto assets price? We don't really know. All we can do is combine fundamental and with the technicals, right? Which the technicals on the prices drive a lot what we do, right? We don't just say, okay, things are bullish, let's just freaking swing for the fences and ignore the charts. But what that does tell me is like, okay, the tourists are out, there's real development, let's prep for the next market cycle, which is what I'm doing now and why I'm so excited about this space. So that's kind of what's going on with T0 as far as I can tell. Again, they've launched, it's accredited only right now until August. They've got a better platform coming maybe. I've taken some trades. I've started to build in a little position right now. I'm going to watch this every single day, look for developments, maybe try to get Patrick on the show or to come, do a webinar for us or something. We'll see what we can do, but I'm just going to be hyper focused on what T0 is doing because it seems like they have first mover advantage as far as like regulatory stuff goes, which is actually, it can be a moat for them, right? Like a protective moat around their business. If they are, one of the only companies that is granted certain licenses and stuff like that. So that's it for T0. Any questions on T0 before we move on? Does that make sense? Everybody good on Overstock, T0? So by the way, and just to recap, if anybody who doesn't know, Overstock is basically like an Amazon competitor on the retail business, which hasn't really been crushing it. And then Patrick got really excited in 2014 about crypto and created T0 to basically be an exchange. And now he's really focused in on security tokens. So they're talking about selling that retail business and basically going all in on crypto. Zach says, are we looking at accredited only for U.S. customers only? Do U.S. regulations apply to EU citizens as well? So it depends. We'll actually talk a little bit more about this when we talk about the next companies. Goldie, as far as I know, T Zero is only planning on legally classified security tokens, I believe. If I'm wrong, or if you guys have heard anything different, let me know. But as far as I can tell, like they want to be a legitimate security token trading exchange with a variety of assets, right? When it would pop up in August, we have to wait until it makes a correction for buying T0. Yeah, I don't know, John. We'll have to see what the tokens look like, when they actually launch the exchange, how they open it up to a non-accredited investors. I have no idea how that's going to look. Is T0 still trying to disrupt traditional markets with zero-day settlements? That was the original pitch. That's what I was thinking. If you look at they have a video. I think it's unlisted. Let me see if I can find it in my notes here. Yeah, I'll have to pull this up later, but there was I mean, that's the goal, right? Is to basically eliminate the T plus 3. So basically, like, just to give you guys a high level overview, if you were to buy and sell stock right now, like say you were buying and selling Apple shares, you don't actually get those like deposited into your account. Really the DTCC and, basically there's like custodial companies, right? And then it takes several days for those transactions to actually clear. And so T0 is like, no, man, that's crazy. These trades should be instant. And I agree with that. And that's one of their biggest selling propositions. And so, yeah, I think that's definitely one of the core benefits that they're looking to do on security tokens. If T0 wants to be an exchange, why do they need their own token? Yeah, I mean, so that was a way for them to raise capital, and they're also going to be paying dividends to token holders. I believe it's 10% of either gross revenue or net revenue, but they're going to be paying a dividend to token holders. Yeah, so basically the idea is if they're profitable, and Patrick is on a speaking tour recently, and he's basically making a case that there's about $1 trillion market value for exchanges, and he's trying to capture a big piece of that. So the idea is, if you look at the trading volume that's being traded and you assume that all securities are going to eventually be tokenized and you can get a piece of that monthly revenue, these tokens at $3 could potentially pay out a really nice dividend. Yeah, and like Kyle said, you can't get dividends with utility shitcoins. Yeah, okay, so let's keep moving forward. So I see some questions about accredited and other companies like Poly and stuff like that. The next one that I want to talk about is Republic. Now, the venture capital firm that I'm associated with made an investment in Republic. I personally did not invest, but this is an interesting one because they are structuring token sales that are for non-accrediteds as well. So I'll post this in Discord. It's just republic.co. You can see a lot of the companies and projects that are raising capital, and you'll notice a lot of these aren't even like crypto related. It's basically a crowdfunding platform. They've got some pretty big backers, including Tim Draper and Next Gen VC Fund. If you scroll down here, and you go to, I think it's Learn. Yeah. They actually have a lot of really good information here. And you'll notice they have kind of a tiered system. So I'll also post this link. How much can you invest? Well, it depends on your income. And so, you know, with different income levels, you can invest different amounts. And so I won't go into too much depth about this, but if we look at another company that's kind of similar to Republic, which is Start Engine, if you scroll all the way down here, they kind of clarify the different types of fundraises or ways to structure these fundraises, which is number one is called a Reg A offering or Reg A Plus, where you can offer to non-accredited and accredited. The second option is and I think this is the most common, which is Reg D filings, which are only offered to accredited investors. So this is like your typical like angel investment is typically a Reg D. And then number three is Reg CF or regulation crowdfunding, which basically limits you to just over $1 million. And let me pull this up real quick. This will show you a little bit better. Can you guys see the PowerPoint again? Okay. So there's three categories. So there's Regulation D, Reg A Plus, and Reg CF. So Regulation D is the most common. This is what I think a lot of the bigger exchanges are doing right now is it's accredited investors only. There's a 12-month lockup. You can solicit, but again, it's only accredited investors, and you can raise an unlimited amount of money, and you don't have to spend a lot of money and time getting SEC approval. So this is why, think about this. If you're a startup founder and you're like, I want to raise 20 million bucks and I want to do it in the cheapest, easiest, low hassle way, while being legal in the US, right? Again, this is for US. What are the options? Well, your typical founder is going to say, well, let's do Reg D, because if we can have an unlimited amount of money, be able to solicit and not have to file a ton of paperwork and wait and spend, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars with the SEC, that's great. But the downside, again, is it's only accredited investors. So typically your highest quality projects will try to do a Reg D, right? And they'll say, well, yeah, I know we're not going to be able to take investments from non-accredited, but if we can have an easier process and get back to work, which is what we're really doing. We're not just, the goal of our company is not to raise money. The goal of the company is to create a profitable company, right? So if we can do that from accrediteds, then great. If not, then we'll try to do something else. What Reg A Plus is you can do non-accredited investors, which, by the way, I didn't mention this. I just kind of assumed everybody knows. An accredited investor is, it means one of two things. You either have $1 million outside of your primary residence, or I think you made, what's the minimum threshold? Like 200,000 or 300,000 for the past couple of years in a row, with the expectation that you're going to keep making that money. So basically it's 250. Okay. And by the way, guys, this is not like legal advice. I think that goes without saying, but like just fact check this stuff. So again, Regulation A Plus, you can raise from non-accrediteds, but you have to get SEC approval, which is slow and expensive. And you have audited financials, and there are limits, but they're pretty high limits. This is the toughest one to get approved. Okay. So this takes a lot of time, a lot of money. And if you're a company who's saying like, okay, we think we need to allow non-accrediteds, then it's worth the extra time and money. That's who will do this. Okay. And then the final one, which this is relatively new, what was it, 2012, I think the Jobs Act came out. Regulation CF, or regulation crowdfunding, basically popped up and was created because of all the crowdfunding sites, like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and all of this stuff, where you can raise 1.07 million. I don't know why it's 0.07, maybe for like legal fees, so you can get $1 million. Non-accrediteds are okay with limits based on income. So going back to that that document on Republic that I was showing you, that's why they have those tiered amounts. You do file with the SEC, and there is a lockup with some exceptions. So what you guys will see in today's current environment is this. You'll see on, let me pull this back up. So on like quote unquote crowdfunding sites like Republic or Start Engine, right? Places like this that want to capture as much of the market as possible, they'll either specialize and they'll say, hey, we are the Reg CF place. Or like Start Engine, if you look down here, they do all three. They do Reg A, they do Reg D, and they do Reg CF. And when you look at these, they'll tell you what type of funding it is. And I believe on Start Engine, they're mostly doing Reg A and Reg CF. And then over here on Republic, they're doing a mix as well. But I would just really encourage you guys to read through these FAQs. You'll learn a lot just by reading this stuff. So that's Republic, that's Start Engine. I have not personally made any investments on either of these platforms yet. There's a lot of hype around some of these, like MedX, I think, is one of their biggest raises. They raised $5 million. I think they're trying to, it's a pharmaceutical company. So that to me just seems super, super risky. But I would just encourage you guys, like, go on these websites and just look through these and just get an idea of what types of projects you're seeing. And again, this is my opinion, right? You might agree or disagree, but my opinion is the Reg CF offerings are typically not the highest quality offerings, and it's higher risk with lower reward. That's just my opinion. You're going to see companies like this. Like, look, Reg CF offered. So, they're raising like, $100K, $200K, $500,000, $50K. Like, these are so small. A lot of these, in my opinion, they shouldn't really be raising money from investors. That's just my opinion. Whenever I look at a venture investment, I want massive potential payoff, right? Because whenever you're investing in these, and this is actually a really good primer on how should I invest here on Republic. It just gives you the mindset of like what venture or angel or startup investing really is. You have to think longer term, and you have to diversify, because you're expecting 90% of these companies to fail or to get you a modest return, right? Like, say you make 10 investments, you're probably going to have 5 that like you lose everything. You might have like 2 or 3 that you like break even on, and they don't really return much, but you don't lose. And then, maybe you'll have 1 or 2 that hit it huge. And the theory is those will make up for all your losses and then a ton on top of that, right? So yeah, just read through this, understand the process of how these work. And then again, once you understand the basics, what you want to figure out for yourself is, what is your bankroll? Like, how much capital do you have, and how much do you want to invest in this niche, right? Of these like startups, right? And it could be like regular startups like this, or it could be only crypto focused stuff, right? Or it could be real estate, stuff. We'll talk about Harbor in a second. There's so many different asset classes you can invest in. And a lot of these, I just call these like small companies, right? I mean, they're not doing anything in crypto. They're not doing anything mind-blowing. Maybe one or two out of this huge list here will hit and make a massive return. I don't know. I just don't really get excited about these types of deals. Let's take a look at some of the startups here. So that was Start Engine. Looks like Republic has funded about 50 or 60 so far. You'll find more crypto related stuff here. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Some of this stuff is just silly in my opinion. Yeah. I'm just looking to see if there's anything I recognize that's interesting. But and look, this is the deal with venture investing is like you should be looking, if you are interested in this, you should be looking at hundreds and hundreds of deals and passing up on most of them. And then when you find a winner, it's a winner that you've done a lot of due diligence on, and that you believe can have like a really big payoff. All right. So those are kind of like the next level, right? So the first level is, we'll call this level 1, is like crypto STO exchanges, right? This is where you're going to get security tokens that you're traded on an exchange. The next kind of category is these crowdfunding platforms like Republic, Start Engine, stuff like that. The third is what I would consider more of a professional level issuance platform. So this is Harbor. So Harbor only has one asset that they've listed so far. So if you go down to investments, the only one they've actually launched is this student housing in South Carolina. I spent about a week doing a really deep dive evaluating this deal, and I decided to pass. The returns just aren't that great, but I just wanted to learn about like the process and what Harbor was looking to do. Usually I wouldn't do that much work on like a single like real estate deal. The deal itself isn't that sexy. I mean, they're targeting, I think, like 7% returns or something like that. But I'll just I'll post this in Discord as well. But you can read how they're structuring this deal. So basically, they're selling tokens for $21,000 a token. They're issuing about 1,000 tokens. And this is an existing luxury student housing building in South Carolina. And they're basically selling 50% equity. So what this really is an opportunity for the early developers and investors to cash out and sell their equity to basically like retail investors. And so they're probably going to close this round. And this is more of like an institutional level where I think, and I talked to the guy that's behind this, and we chatted about like what the interest was like from the crypto community. And it, you know, from his perspective, he said it wasn't really that great, which I kind of understand why. I mean, this is more of a lower risk, lower reward type play. And I just wanted to do some due diligence. I'll look at the next deals that they do, but I'm passing on this one. Nick said, are you going to do any classes on how to do due diligence of potential venture deals? Absolutely. We did that actually. We did a panel in Cayman where we talked about that. But yeah, we'll do even more of that coming up. Yeah, so I have looked at Bank to the Future. I haven't focused on them in the past like 60 days when I've been focusing on this stuff. Have you guys made any trades or investments or done anything with them? If so, let me know and we'll jump to that when I'm through with this. So that's what Harbor is. There's also a company called Slice, which I think is looking to compete with Harbor. So Slice is a venture-backed, I think, was it Spice VC? Yeah, one of these guys invested in Slice. So Slice is another real estate platform. So you can see, I mean, they're basically tokenizing equity in big multifamily deals. And so if for anybody who's like, I'm looking to have exposure to real estate, this could be interesting. Or you can get access to deals that you wouldn't typically get access to. But again, you know, established multifamily real estate is lower potential reward. Like if you put in 100K, you're probably not going to turn that into a $10 million. Like you're going to get a modest, you know, cap rate of, you know, what, 5 to 15%. But if you have capital that you want to diversify into real estate, I think some of these platforms are going to be really interesting because if you can get in early and then there's a robust secondary market after the lockup period, that's where you could get a liquidity premium and maybe get a little bit of a higher ROI on your capital. Oh, gotcha. Thanks, Rob. So that's Slice. So Harbor, Slice, you know, the real estate, there's an angle there. So again, that's kind of here in the middle part with issuance, right? We've talked about Republic, talked about Slice, Harbor, Start Engine, and there are several others that are popping up here. Polymath is one that a lot of people know. Their tokens are already trading on several crypto exchanges. Open Finance. So Open Finance is a platform which is currently actively trading tokens of some of the early blockchain venture capital companies. Okay. So if that's confusing, I understand why. Let me explain. So Open Finance is an exchange, kind of like T0, right? Just an exchange, just like Coinbase, Binance, right? Spice is a venture capital firm. It's the first tokenized VC fund, right? What does that mean? Well, these guys raise money and they invest in blockchain stuff, specifically the tokenization space and security tokens, right? So if you scroll down, actually, I think it's on their homepage. Yeah, you can see where they've invested. So they're involved with Slice, which I just showed you. And then there's several others like ROX, I think. Yeah, this is a real estate play as well. Securitize, Backed, right? This is one that has been in the news and we've been talking a lot about. So there are several exchange or several VC funds like Blockchain Capital. And another place, in case you guys want access to that and you're an American citizen, let me pull this up. There's this company called SharesPost. So SharesPost is basically an OTC trading platform for private companies like Uber and Airbnb and stuff like that. So basically you can come in here and what I like about this site, which is kind of interesting, is they actually have, this is basically the closest thing you're going to see to a price chart for private companies like this. It's the enterprise value. So it's basically like when they raise around, the market cap or the enterprise value updates, right? So you can see like when Uber raised their seed round here in 2010, they raised $1.5 million at a $5 million value. And then here around 13 and 14, when they were taken off, they started raising rounds at higher and higher valuations. So they pretty quickly went from a $5 million company in about 6 years to a $70 billion company, right? So if anybody's even asking like, well, why do we want to invest in early startups? Like, this is why, because this is where you're going to get exposure to companies that have the potential for massive, massive growth, right? And the I guess you could call it a problem, but the state of financial markets today is that companies are staying private longer, which means they're not doing IPOs until way later at higher valuations. So people that buy stock on the stock market are paying much higher prices for these companies, where the people that are benefiting and getting the biggest returns are the ones that invest earlier, right? Which kind of makes sense. Like, think about it. The earlier you invest, the more risk you take, the bigger your returns are going to be if it works out. Whereas if you buy Uber or, Spotify or any of these companies, when they hit the public markets, a lot of times that's why we've seen in recent history where IPOs just turn out to be disasters, because all it is, people selling. And look, we know there's lockup periods and stuff like that, but the idea is, and at least my thought process is, I want to find the companies that have the biggest potential return as early as possible, right? Now, with that comes greater risk, but that's why due diligence is so important. But anyway, Blockchain Capital is also listed on here, and I think there's a couple others, but you can see that this is one that's trading on Open Finance. If you can't trade on Open Finance, you can do an OTC block trade here. I have the broker's contact info if you want to talk to the guy who's managing all this. But that's what that's about. Talking a little bit about Spice. Okay, so this is one that I want to point out because it's just, this is something that I'm interested in, at least this business model, where you can buy tokens, right? You can invest in this company, which is investing in other companies, right? And I'll post this article in Discord as well. And what they talk about in here is what their net assets look like, right? So they invested, if we scroll all the way down here, you can see their total assets under management are like 15 million, which is pretty small. And what they're looking to do, if you read their portfolio and investment strategy, is they are focused on investing in the tokenization ecosystem. Right. So because, and this is where things get really interesting, because we're so early, there's the potential to invest in like the next Coinbase at a really low valuation. For example, I'll just show you Coinbase here. Check this out. So 2013, 14, 15, Coinbase was raising at, $25 million value, $150 million. And then as of their last raise, they were valued at $8 billion, right? So just imagine, like, if you invest in one of these funds or directly in a company and you're investing early and you get something that, hits and turns out to be the next Coinbase or something like that, that's where you get significant growth in the value. And so that's why I really like, and I've talked about this in the market updates, I'm a fan of crypto exchanges from an investment standpoint, just purely based on the fact that exchanges are cash cows. They just churn profits day after day after day. Unlike a lot of these other projects that are either like weird networks or tokens that we don't understand, right? Like, I understand infrastructure. I understand the ecosystem investments. And so you can see some of their investments they made, like Securitize, Saga, Slice. We talked about that one. A few other smaller ones that are getting set up. Also tokenized projects. These are more like kind of your startup category, right? Like individual companies, like GraphPath aims at democratizing the development and management at graphs at scale. I don't know what the hell that means. You got to do due diligence on it, right? But it's a company that's looking to solve a problem. Just like any other startup, they're just tokenizing it. And so on and so forth down in the equity area. And then the third category is just core blockchain infrastructure, right? Those are kind of their three sectors. So there's a couple of ways that you can participate, right? You can buy into VC firms. You can make direct investments either on exchanges or the initial security token offering, right? Yeah. And I'll also post this for anybody that wants to geek out. If you want to really understand what this looks like as of later last year, you can read like how they what their investment strategy is, how they value everything. This is just really good information to read. It's really dry information, but it's worth your time. The other one that we'll talk a little bit about, Polymath, I think this just came out today. They're doing a lot of development behind the scenes. So they were just showing, I guess, security tokens can be compliant on a decentralized exchange. So the biggest, I guess, thing that these companies are trying to figure out is automated regulation. Like, how do you buy and sell and transfer tokens in a legally compliant way? Because whenever you're raising capital in these startups, you're going to have limits like, obviously the accredited investor thing, lockup periods, max number of investors. And so they're building these standards that will basically automate that process, which will make it so much easier than it is right now. So that's something that's pretty interesting. And that's the bulk of what I wanted to cover, just kind of as a first flow through. So again, to kind of recap, the two parts that I'm paying most attention to right now are what are the issuance platforms, right? Like who's actually publishing and launching security tokens. Oh, and there's one more. I don't know why I don't see CoinList on here. Do you guys see CoinList? Anyway, so CoinList is getting ready to do another one. So CoinList is affiliated with AngelList, which is like the biggest network for angel investors. And yeah, this one is the one that's coming up, Ocean, early March. So if anybody wants to do due diligence on this one, you got a little bit of time to jump through their hoops, do your accreditation and all that stuff. You can see CoinList is also, they've done several in 2017. Where'd they go? They keep moving stuff. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so they did Filecoin, Blockstack, Origin, and Props. So this is one that is, as far as a issuance platform, which is really interesting because they are associated with AngelList. No, I'm watching Poly, however you want to say that. But I have not made a significant investment yet. So this one's kind of weird for me. I'm kind of curious if you guys have any opinion about this. I don't know the founder or the team at all. I just know they partnered with Tai Lopez. And I don't know, there were just some things that I saw that I was like, okay, I'm going to wait on this one. And then this was actually back in Cayman, I believe right here. Yeah, somewhere in here we were in Cayman, and I was basically, just watching price action. So you can see we've been just talking about this because we do have price discovery, right? This thing is actively trading on an exchange. So we can see lower highs, lower lows, right? And so what I want is I want to be able to see when there's going to be an actual change in overall direction. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's for anybody that doesn't know Ty, he's like a get rich quick internet marketer who basically came in at the top of the market and started pumping crypto to all his followers. And it's just not a guy that I have a lot of respect for. So you can see what happened. I mean, when they listed, and I don't even know if this is the earliest chart, but basically it dumped off of the gate. Does anybody know where it first listed? Was it Polo? I can't remember. Might have been Binance. Oh, Bittrex? There we go. Is that right? Yeah. So anyway, this is what I'm watching, and I hope they do really well. And look, this is why, just talking about ICOs in general, like the old school model, where like people would just launch a token and then list it. The biggest benefit of an ICO is also its biggest downfall. So, the biggest benefit and downside to the old school ICO model is the short time frame from we'll just say ICO to listing on an exchange. So why is that the biggest benefit and downfall? Well, the biggest plus to that is you get a fast flip of value from ICO holder to exchange trader, right? Which could mean big potential returns within a few short months, right? Like that's what we saw a lot of. And then the biggest negative is token value can dump fast. And then people can lose trust in the project, right? So that's what's happened with a lot of these companies from 2017 that raised a ton of money and then listed on an exchange. And that's why I didn't invest in T0 initially, is I've just seen what can happen to startups whenever they raise too much money. It sounds like a benefit and everybody wants to celebrate the raise, which is the dumbest thing in my opinion. It's like whenever I see founders that they're like, yeah, we closed our $100 million round, and then they just start popping bottles. A lot of times they get comfortable, they get lazy, they get complacent, and then nothing gets done, right? Whereas if you have a company that's like super, super hungry and they're diligent and they're like, hey, we're not going to give away a ton of equity or take on a lot of risk by raising too much money. That's really what I want to see, is like responsible founders. But the problem is during the ICO boom of 17, too many people got the dollar signs in their eyes, or the Bitcoin B in their eyes, right? And that's why we are seeing this. If you look at the total market the total market cap excluding Bitcoin, so this is basically altcoins, you'll see why we are down, what, about 90% from the all-time highs. So I think going forward, and I don't want to get too deep into the price charts right now, but I just think the next market cycle is going to look very, very different from this one. It's going to be, in my opinion, even more disjointed, right? Where we're going to have these different exchanges like, T0, Open Finance, all these other ones. And I don't know. Some are going to trade much, much slower. Some will have price transparency on like a news aggregator or a price aggregator like coinmarketcap.com. Some won't. It's just going to be, interesting. So, here's kind of my hope for Poly is that they launch, right? Because right now there's not a whole lot of activity other than their kind of infrequent updates. But if they launch and they start listing tokens, and here's the thing, guys, when it comes to these exchanges and issuance platforms, there's a lot of competition. Let's say that there's, 50 exchanges out there, right? Out of, say if there's, by the end of the year, if there's like 50 exchanges or issuance platforms, which they're slightly different things, but whatever. Like I would expect probably 40 out of those 50 to go bust, and say there's 10 left. I'd say like maybe 5 out of those 10 do okay and they return a profit. And then it's kind of like, just a handful of them get the lion's share of the listings and the equity and the profit. So that's my prediction. And that's why I'm not in a rush to place all my eggs in like 1 or 2 of these baskets, and why I'm just hyper focused on the fundamentals, which whenever we're looking at these STO exchanges and issuance platforms, from a fundamental analysis perspective, I'm looking at who is the team, right? Can they execute? Also, what's their edge, right? Is it like regulatory? Do they have first mover advantage, kind of like T0? Do they have a niche, right? Are they like the masters of like, say like, real estate? Or have they cornered a specific market where they just have a lineup of a ton of assets that are coming on board? Let's see, what else? What's their edge? Yeah, really that's it. And then what I'm doing to kind of answer those questions is like paying close attention, like watching their blog or like news alerts, signing up for their newsletters. Like, guys, like create an email address that is just for like the mailing lists of all these security token companies. That's what I did. I have like hundreds of email addresses, but one of, like I have one that's dedicated where I just go through the master list of like all the security token companies I can find, get on their email lists. And then every day I have a daily habit of like scanning through those emails and picking out and seeing what interesting information comes around. Also, just seeing like, are they hitting deadlines? Deadlines. Right? Like, are they doing what they say they're going to do? And also like paying attention to how transparent they are with, what they're doing, how much capital they might have, what their plans are. So that's pretty much it. Again, we're super, super early. So there's not a whole lot of like activity, right? Like the only thing that I've done so far is invest a little bit in T0. But this is why I think there's preparation time, right? It's like, I think Rocky's used this analogy. There's different seasons or there's different time frames, right? Like right now is like the planting seeds, right? This is where we study, research, prepare. Then there's the growth time frame where it's like we actually make investments, trades, you sign up for stuff like exchanges. where you actually do, right? So there's the planting, there's the growth, and then there's the harvest, right? Which is where you sell or flip into something different. You have companies that get exits, either, they IPO or they get bought out through an M&A, something like that. And so I think a lot of people that I've seen kind of just like the people that like comment on my YouTube or the trolls on Twitter, like they don't understand that there's a phase one. Everybody just wants to go to, okay, hey, how do I get growth and how do I harvest without any work, without putting in any time, without thinking about risk, without being responsible? Just tell me where to throw my money and how I can turn $5,000 into $1 million in a month, right? That's the typical mindset of people like that. What I would encourage you guys to do, and I know a lot of you guys are really good at this, is invest the time in the planting season, right? Which is right now. Study, understand, find an edge, right? And I think it's really, really powerful to have a community where we can share information like this. In fact, I'm going to give you guys a recommendation. There's a book. Has anybody read Thinking in Bets? You guys heard of that? Thinking in Bets? This book is incredible. So Annie was a professional poker player, and she obviously has to make it in poker. You have to really understand probabilities and risk management, right? Same like with trading. And what she talks about in this book are obviously like the technical things of like position sizing, but also just how to think in probabilities in different areas of your life. And one of the things that she talks about is how valuable it is to have a community where you have like-minded people, right? Because trading and investing are a very lonely thing, right? And so, Harry, like you said, like Chris, what if we don't trust our judgment on these things? That's why we have a community, right? Like I can't give you financial advice, but I can give you my opinion on like a specific project or something like that. And show you what I'm doing and what I'm interested in. And again, like I'm only one person and Rocky's only one person and Travis and Nikki are, we're a team and we can help each other in different ways. But, we also get a lot of value from you guys. Like a lot of you guys will bring me deals or, show me blind spots that I might have about a specific project or, bring something to my attention that just slipped through the cracks because, being in the crypto space is like trying to be like drink from a fire hydrant of information. It's like I read for several hours every day, and I'm still not able to keep up with everything, Yeah, absolutely. Harry, your confidence grows as you make good judgments, as you make good trades and investments, and you prove to yourself that, hey, I can trust myself to make good decisions. B, I have patience and discipline to wait, and I also have confidence and the skill set needed to execute when the time is right. Right. So, Goldie, I mean, my goal, so that I know there's kind of this divide, which I think is so stupid. I'll just tell you my quick tangent about the accredited investor thing. I think it's lazy regulation. I know why the government put it in place to protect mom and pop investors from getting scammed by their cousin's friend who's going to come over and go, hey, grandma, Mrs. So-and-so, I'm starting a company. I'm going to turn it into $1 billion company. Give me your $1 million nest egg. And then they lose everything, right? That's why I think the government put the accredited investor thing into play. But again, just because you have capital doesn't mean you're smart. I know a lot of really dumb rich people, and I know a lot of really smart people that are still building their bankroll. And so, why should somebody who knows the crypto space intimately, but doesn't have $1 million, why are they not able to participate, but an idiot, you know, that just happened to inherit money from his parents is able to invest? You know, it makes the rich richer and the poor poorer. And so my goal with the community is, for those of you that are not accredited investors, like, how do you get there? Right? And the right answer is not always, well, just trade more. Like, sometimes that's the move, but sometimes the move is to diversify and build different legs of your financial house, right? Like we talked about when we added several things to the community. And then obviously those of you that are accredited, like, how do you really position size and invest wisely? And I guess my advice, or just my encouragement to you guys that are still building is, you know, be patient. Don't get so frustrated or impatient that you either quit or you make bets that end up taking you out of the game. Because there's always another trade. There's always another market cycle. There's always another investment to be made. There's always innovation. And I'm starting to lose my voice. If you get FOMO, or if you get frustrated and give up or make stupid bets and blow out your accounts, that's just going to make it harder for yourself. So no matter what you do, just be disciplined, be smart, and be patient. I mean, that's really all I can say. And you know, like Annie talks about in her book, Thinking in Bets, you know, success is skill plus luck, right? And all we can do is control what's in our control, which is our skill set, right? Developing those skills, and then our mindset, being able to have confidence to execute when the timing is right, but also the humility to pull back when the timing is not right. Any advice on not allowing skills to become diluted with too many legs? Yeah, I mean, I think you need to build one thing at a time, right? Where you basically place a bet with your time, which is your most valuable asset. Like, hey, where do I think my time is best spent right now? Is it best spent evaluating security tokens, building some online income streams, eliminating as many expenses as I can, living super lean so I can save and invest and grow my wealth quicker by just being responsible, right? Like, I think that's a pretty simple one, is get your financial house in order, right? Go through the Maximize Your Money course that Nikki put together. You know, talk to a financial advisor, talk to an accountant, get that stuff situated. That's something I think everybody should do. And then from there, look at your situation and say, do I need more income, or do I have enough income and I just need to reduce my expenses? Or do I have a lot of capital that I'm just trying to find a home for, right? Like, everybody's in a different situation. There's a wide spectrum. You know, some people have made a lot of money with us over the past 6 years, and they're just waiting and being patient for the next market cycle. Some of you guys are like, hey, it's slow and it's hustle season. Let me go build and, you know, stack income streams, right? Like, there's no one right single answer, but you just have to look at the options that you have available and place bets, both figuratively and literally, with your capital and time. Thanks, Goldie. Yeah. So with that said, guys, I know I went on a little bit of a tangent there. I just, you know, I really like to explain kind of the thought process behind a lot of this stuff. You know, so just to recap, you know, we looked at some of the issuance companies, the exchanges, talked about what I've done so far, what I've been looking at. Is there anything else that you guys have been looking at or that we haven't talked about in the STO space, or just any questions you have specifically about this that I haven't answered yet? Rave says, can you comment on Poly a bit deeper, your opinion and thoughts about how they'll develop, if you plan any investment? Yeah, so I'm just looking at, Ooh, here we go. So yeah, I'm paying attention to their blog post or their blog roll, and also their Telegram group, and just looking for when they're going to launch stuff and what the next level of their development is, and kind of pairing that with the technicals, right? So it's very clear right now we're in a bear market. The price action will eventually probably go into an accumulation period. As of right now, we're making lower lows, lower highs. I haven't seen any sign of capitulation or reversal yet. So when I can get a fundamental catalyst that correlates with reality on the price chart, then I'll look to scale in. But until then, I'm really just waiting. What type of security tokens do you think will end up generating the most volume other than stocks? That's a good question. Most volume other than so under stocks, I'm going to lump that with like private equity and venture stuff. I think exchanges off of the gate, right? And all the in the short term, I think the infrastructure companies, which is really mostly what we're seeing right now anyway. But over the long term, man, I mean, I think real estate is going to be really interesting. I think with some of these like $100 million plus real estate plays, the volatility on those is probably not going to be that high. Intellectual property rights, that'll be really interesting. Music, or I'm sure some artist is going to tokenize him or herself. Like sell a piece of their future earnings. As far as trading volume, I don't know, man. Do you have any opinions on that? So I don't know exactly what the accredited investor laws are in the EU. I think it's something like they use a different word, and I want to say that the regulations are a little more lax over there, where it's self accreditation, where you check a box that says you're either I think the word is sophisticated investor. I think that's what they use. Now with these crypto tokens, I don't know if EU-based companies are going to even accept US residents and even worry about that whole thing. So there's two options. These companies are either going to do security tokens, which are, legal in the US, or they're going to go to like Malta or somewhere else and do a traditional ICO and then just try to exclude US residents altogether. Now, I am not opposed to that. For anybody that's like, I completely understand if an entrepreneur says, you know what, the US isn't even worth the risk. Let's go to Malta or one of these other areas that's really aggressive, Switzerland or whatever, and we're just going to not accept US residents and do an ICO. I respect that. I just think that pool of options is going to be equally riddled with scams like it has been for the past couple of years. So I'm just much more weary of that now. Characteristics of the professional. Oh, okay. So there is a little bit of a more defined, says the investor has carried out transactions. The financial portfolio exceeds 500,000 euro. Okay. So yeah, there must be some minimums there. And I don't know, like I know in the States, like CoinList and AngelList and a lot of these like bigger private issuance companies, have gotten more and more rigorous with their accreditation. Like they want to actually see like tax returns and or CPA letters and stuff like that. Where before, like it was, ever since I started angel investing around 2012 or 13, like it was mostly just self accreditation. Like I never had a founder go, "Hey, let me see your bank statement," But nowadays with the security token stuff, I think they're just stepping that up. Will there be rules of holding these real estate tokens to actually receive income on that property? Like once you purchase a token, you need to hold it for a full payout before you sell it. I'm sure there's going to be lockup periods. I can't remember what the Harbor lockup period one was. But I think a lot of them will have lockups. Now that's from the initial issuance. Now after it's issued and 12 months goes by, they might just float freely. And then like if they do dividend payouts, the dividends might go to whatever address those tokens are currently being held in. That's the thought, at least. I haven't actually seen that in practice yet. And it's funny, I spent like a full day like reading the PPM of the Harbor real estate deal. So the private placement memorandum was like, I want to say it was like 80 something pages. And like they had very, very detailed language in there that was like, hey, we don't know if this whole token thing is really going to work. We're going to try it. But if the tokenization doesn't work out, we're just going to go back to the old school database of an Excel spreadsheet. So I think most of the real estate PPMs that you see will have that language in there until there's like a more like proven way, which I think will happen this year. Will our non-accredited investors allowed to invest in STOs at the same time as accredited? In Ontario, non-accrediteds can invest up to 10K per year in private equity since over the past. Okay. So the question is can non-accredited investors invest alongside accredited investors? So yeah, it depends on which regulation they file under. So like Reg A plus or Reg CF, which we talked about earlier, those are, they can be accredited or non-accredited. It's the Reg D, which is the most common for startups, is accredited only. Kyle says, I feel like daily payouts would actually work best. I could see people selling their tokens, buying them back. Yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting. There's definitely going to be ways to profit trading these that we haven't really thought about or seen yet, which is another reason I'm excited, because we know like, hey, the earlier we are, the more disjointed things are, I mean, that's room for profit. So. Rave, can you comment on the other issuers of your list and why you're not interested? You probably looked into some like Swarm. Yeah. I mean, I didn't cover them all. Just trying to save time. I mean, there's definitely a lot more in here. So like the Swarm Fund. Let's see some other ones just real quick. Issuance, securitize. Yeah, like Bancor was one, AirSwap is one. So I saw today, I hadn't looked at AirSwap in a while. Have you guys used AirSwap? So AirSwap just partnered with Wire, WYRE, for fiat. Kyle, I think you were in on AirSwap pretty early. But it's funny, they actually do like KYC stuff right here through MetaMask. You got securitize, issuance. Like a lot of these are actually behind, but you can see like another one is Swarm. There's also two more that are listed on Open Finance right now. see. Yeah, I've got I got a bunch of notes on Swarm. Pull this up. Yeah, I know they're trying to do. I'll post this for you guys. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't get in early, and I haven't used this platform. Um, oh, but there were two others that are on Open Finance right now, other than. Hang on, let me find it. Yeah, so there's on Open Finance, there's four. There's Spice VC, there's Blockchain Capital, there's LDC Crypto Universal, and there's Batch 22X. So there's several of these that you can invest through. Swarm's one. I think I got to a stopping point with Swarm. Let me look at my notes real quick. I tell you, man, there is just so freaking much that every day I have to go through and like review where I'm at with each one, because all these platforms move at different paces. Swarm. Oh yeah, I signed up, but I didn't do verification yet for some reason. I need to look back into that. Rave, have you done anything with Swarm? Okay, cool. All right, guys, what other questions do you have? Hopefully this is helpful. I know I went through a whole lot really quickly. Was this clear? Was it helpful? Was it confusing? Give me some feedback. How do you guys feel about this this whole security token space? Questions, comments? Have a lot to read. Need to absorb the info. Informative, helpful. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, this is helpful for me too, to kind of teach this stuff, because you know, you remember like 90% of what you show or what you teach, and I've just been doing so much that I'm like, okay, I need to get to a stopping point now. I've evaluated some deals, looked at a lot of exchanges, starting kind of the early process of making some small bets, but really just being patient and waiting. And you know, the idea of like the big payoff makes all this work worth it. You know, but it just takes time. Awesome. Yeah, I haven't really excluded any rave. So I'm at different points with each one. Like some I hit a dead end with, like Open Finance. I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be great. And I went through the process, and then like the communication was bad. And then they're like, oh yeah, we're not taking US customers right now. I was like, okay, well, that's a dead end. T0 took me a month to get approved with. Harbor, that was pretty easy, but they only had one deal. CoinList is a pain to deal with. Templum, I got approved. Oh yeah, I'll just show you guys Templum. So Templum is another one. They don't actually have any active or open rounds, I don't believe. me see. They must have. There we go. Yeah, so I believe these are all. Wait. They have a list of the prior raises, and they're actually getting ready to launch some IP stuff. I think this one's it. So we partnered with IPWE, the world's first patent transaction platform. No, that's not it. Hang on. IP. Oh, maybe that is it. Here, let me get in here. Yeah. So they're basically going to tokenize some IP, which will be really interesting, intellectual property. So it could be art, music, books, whatever. So I'm approved with them. They just don't have anything at the moment. I do not like their website. Can you list projects you have interest in? So, I'm interested in pretty much all the ones we talked about today. In the short term, I can just tell you like the tokens that I see kind of in the nearest term are the exchange tokens like T0. I would think in probably Q3 of this year, we're going to see some of the other stuff get listed. I am interested in some real estate deals, but it's got to be the right deal. And I feel like the first deals that they're trying to tokenize don't have the best returns. So I'm just waiting because I can invest in other funds that actually get better returns. And I feel like they're just kind of throwing out some of the low hanging fruit of deals that weren't able to close their round. And they're like, oh, let's see if we can tokenize this. And get, some dumb investors to throw money at, low cap deals, and I'm just not going to do that. Kind of surprised it's not taken off even faster. The whole concept makes more sense to me than crypto itself. Yeah, John, I mean, so, if you look at practically like what's actually happening, this just takes a lot of work. I mean, if you look at these companies, which this might even be just outdated at this point, but there's just a lot of stuff happening, and it takes time for all of this to come together, right? There's a lot of development, a lot of regulatory stuff, which is the hardest part and probably why it's so slow. So once the infrastructure is there, and once assets start getting listed and there's like success stories and people are looking and going, oh, okay, this is actually working, then the momentum is going to build. I want to be in way before that happens. And I want you guys, if you're interested, to at least understand what's going on. So when the herd comes, we're already there, Has Trav gone into the potential revenue per token for T0 yet? I don't think so. Yeah, and that's the thing that's like really hard to figure out, and that's why I'm really waiting until they list some more assets to really build into a big size. I mean, I'm going to have a little position in there, but yeah, I mean, there's really two outcomes. It's T0 becomes one of the few exchanges that gets the lion's share of the volume, or they fail to execute and somebody eats their lunch, right? And for me, it's too early, and I see too many risks for me to make a serious bet on T0. And just from a timing perspective too, I might end up regretting that. I might not ever be able to get tokens at $3 in the future, and I might kick myself, but I'm okay with that. Big payoff. Yep. Yeah, I mean XTZ is one that is a contender for the STO space, right? So there are several, yeah, I guess we could just call them networks or protocols. And I think so. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna give it till Q3, so like another 6 months, and I think by then we'll have a pretty good idea of what protocols and exchanges and companies things are gravitating to. And then based on that, if there's any tokens that are listed like XTZ or like Poly or anything like that, we have the added benefit of price discovery, right? And price history on a chart. For anything that doesn't have price discovery, if it's a private company or if it's just not listed on any exchange yet, I'm going to be even more conservative with. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a contender. 100% Coinbase could release an exchange, then back to the NASDAQ. Who knows? Yeah, exactly. I mean, any one of the existing players. And I mean, I'm telling you, you think NASDAQ and Amex and, you know, the European exchanges, you think they want to lose to these new startups? Hell no. They're not going down without a fight. So there's that potential too. Which is why I think a lot of the startup exchanges are going to get crushed, but I'm always rooting for the little guy and the new guy. And I do think that the smaller, more nimble, faster startups can take market share from the big exchanges that we have today. It's going to be really interesting. I wish we could fast forward 20 years and see what trading and investing looks like. It's going to look quite different, I think. Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. Well, we've been going for quite a while. Any other questions, comments? We'll go ahead and wrap it up. And yeah, if you guys have anything you're looking at or any questions that you want to look at, we've got the new channel for security tokens set up. So feel free to just post in there and we'll keep the conversation going. Yeah, that's another possibility, right? T0 could get acquired. Any one of these companies could get acquired. In fact, I think a lot of them are probably hoping for that, where they're like, hey, man, yeah, we built the infrastructure. Give me $500 million and let me go, you know, chill on the beach. Or $8 billion, you know, like who knows? Like these exchanges, I really like as a business model just because they're cash cows. So that's why I'm kind of excited that the infrastructure piece is the first piece to get tokenized, and at this time is the most profitable piece based on a real revenue metric. Yeah, and guys, we'll do definitely more classes like this, Mike. You know, doing some due diligence, looking at fundamentals, you know, and as you guys know, I mean, fundamental analysis with crypto stuff is like pretty hard to do. It's very vague. It's a lot easier to do fundamental analysis on stocks than it is crypto stuff. From like a revenue and a multiplier and, you know, like all that stuff. Okay, guys, have a great one. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate y'all sitting here with me so long and hope this was valuable. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you later.